Welcome to the No Budget Indie Filmcast, where we dip into the independent film universe to highlight those little films that you might not have heard about elsewhere. Will you agree with our panel, or will our panel agree with each other? Tune in to find out. I am Milo Dennison, and with me, as always, is Claire Milan
Hello.
and Cathal Feeney.
Hello.
This week, we watched a film called T is for Toilet, directed and animated by Hardcastle, which is a cool name, by the way. Like, what's your name? Lee Hardcastle. So I'm sure we all remember being little children and being toilet trained because, you're taught to use the toilet as you're supposed to. And in this case, the boy is old enough to where he's no longer using the little trainer toilet, I guess, the little plastic trainer toilet. I'm guessing that's what that was in the
Potty.
carpet. What?
Potty, we call it.
Oh, yeah, a little potty, children's potty thing. Okay. That, and now he's getting to the point where he has to use the adult's toilet. But it's scary and he's scared. And in this short film, he has a valid reason to be scared because it will eat him and his entire family. Or maybe it won't because it's just a dream. So it's all claymation animation, but it's certainly not animated for children. The the parents get all excited about the little boy that is going into the toilet. He's sitting on the toilet, and the dad is kind of like swearing up a storm the entire time. But there's just a few funny lines in there as well, because like the mom's like, nothing's going to happen on the toilet. And then the dad's like, well, what about Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon? Or, he's listing off all these like traumatic things that happened in a toilet or on a toilet and stuff like that. But then, of course, like I said, it was all a nightmare. But then again, was it a nightmare? That's what we got to wait and find out in the film. That's all there is to it. It's pretty short. It's only about 4 minutes long. And yeah, there you go, guys. What do you think?
It was yeah, I watched it twice actually. Yeah, it was very well animated. I think this is quite an old film, isn't it? It's like 8 or 9
Yeah,
years old
13
or
years
more.
old.
10 years old because I saw people
13.
underneath 13
Yeah.
years old. But I saw people in the comments saying this gave them nightmares.
Yeah.
Literally. This gave them nightmares. I thought it was brilliant. I accidentally turned on the subtitles and it just said random swearing when they were swearing. There's a lot of swearing in it.
Hmm.
And I loved the Northern English accents. The kind of I don't know what it is. It's just the Northern English accents and the swearing. It's definitely not for kids. It
No.
will give kids nightmares. But the animation and the gore, like I love the fact and it's a clay models, isn't it? Stop motion. But the gore from things that happen, which you won't spoil too much, was brilliant. And it's yeah, an interesting film and quite cruel in parts because the father laughs the kid, which was quite mean as well. And then there's a bit of a twist. But it's yeah, very well animated, very well. The voice acting was terrific, and the gore, the animated stop motion gore was yeah, amazing. But it's an unexpected animation, so it was a good choice.
Mhm.
And yeah, don't if you have kids, don't let kids watch this because they might a few nightmares after it.
Um, well, Milo, to answer your question, was it a dream? Well, it was a dream, but then he died in the end anyway. Oops, sorry,
Oh,
spoiler
spoiler.
alert. Anyway, we always spoil, you should know by now. If you're a regular listener, we
Spoiler.
spoil it.
Watch
And
it
we
first.
always recommend watch the film first, then watch the review. I mean, who, yeah, well, for a short film, doesn't take long to watch the film. Sorry for ruining it. Uh, but
I
yeah, it was very
tried,
good.
Carl. I tried for once on this show to not spoil the ending, and this is what happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay. Well, I like this is really good. I have to say, and I'm always impressed by stop motion sort of claymation, because it's I guess it's slow and painstaking, to do it. And it takes artistry and creativity. Uh, but I think there's a sort of a fine line between horror and comedy, especially for something like this. So you start off, I suppose it depends on how old you are. If you're a kid, you're probably scared out of your wits. But you start off and maybe you're a little bit taken aback. You're a bit sort of a little bit frightened, and then you just laugh. You start laughing at the absurdity of it. It just becomes really really funny. Um, and yeah, I remember years ago. It reminded me of when I was in college. Actually, when they had this a hypnosis kind of show, and they brought some people up onto the stage, and he started talking about a farmer's field, this little bunny rabbit running through the field, and then the farmer's there, and oh no, he's got a gun, and he's taking out the gun, and oh no, he's going to shoot the rabbit. And but in particular, there's this woman and a man there, and the woman was crying, she was crying her eyes out, and the man was laughing his whole off, like at the whole thing. So I suppose it's a matter of perspective, but yeah, like it's horror comedy, I would say.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's funny because it starts out comedic, then it goes full on horror. You get a
Yeah,
little comedy, and then you get some horror again. So it really
Yeah.
bounces back in between the two.
But a lot of comedy writers, like Jordan Peele, started off as a comedic comedy writer and ended up
Mhm.
doing horror. So a lot of comedy writers make brilliant horror writers as well. Something to do with pacing or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. It's yeah, it is funny because I mean, if they did it 13 years ago, they must have done proper claymation movements as well. Like, whereas now you can kind of cheat it a little bit and animate your claymation. But they must have had to do this all at the same time. But to be able to get so much going on in that claymation, because like when the toilet comes out and bites the person, and then you get the blood splatter and like all this other kind of stuff in claymation, it's pretty impressive that they were able to get that done. And with a pretty small crew. I mean, it was basically just Lee, audio, a couple other people. Like it was really just, yeah, just a
And
small.
even they changed perspective at one stage, didn't they? It was from the monster's perspective. But I just thought, yeah, I think it was literally one man, really, who did most of it.
Yeah, I think it
It's
was Lee
phenomenal,
Hardcastle.
like
well,
absolutely phenomenal.
Leek could be a woman as well. Yeah,
Oh
True.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it
Mm.
could be.
I think there's a
But Lee
series
played the
of them.
dad, actually. No, Lee did
Oh,
the
did
voice of the
he?
dad.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
reminds me of the actor from the Full Monty, the dad. What do you call him? Robert, is that Robert
Robert
Carlyle?
Carlyle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looks a bit like him. Yeah, doesn't he? Even
Kind
sounds
of,
like him.
yeah.
Looks like him. Okay,
You
you
know
can
what I
say he
mean?
sounds like him. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
looks like
know.
him.
uh,
Yeah.
I might be a little bit of a stretch.
Mhm.
Um, Also, I'm going to say, right, and I don't mean this in a bad way. Okay, and I'm going to give a lot of leeway considering it was done 13 years ago. But you could sort of figure out the whole kind of dream sequence, usage here. And I remember going back again, not as far this time, but one of the very first things I wrote, which would have been the same year as this, I wrote sort of an absurdist sort of beginning, and then it was a dream sequence, and he comes out of the dream. And when we had a sort of a writer's room, and everybody was like, man, like never mind the dream sequence, just continue on with the main part. So that's what I did. I went back and sort of rewrote it. So it's sort of cliche, but it's still, still enjoyed it. Still very good.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the it was all just a dream either, but I think it works in this because of the way it ended. Right? So if he had like woken up and been like, okay, I'm gonna use the toilet, nothing would have happened, fine. But then like, the thing falls, head, all that, that kind of all that happens, and you're like, okay, it works because
And like
it was
it
it
was a
was
satisfying finish,
Wasn't it?
definitely.
And I think because the dream sequence was the setup for the
Yeah.
for the thing at the and then the setup, yeah, I think that's why it worked.
yeah,
So well.
definitely.
Yeah.
Because yeah, exactly. Nobody likes that. It was all a dream. Yeah.
So here's a question. I might have asked this before. What makes a horror a horror?
Yeah, I
I think it's
wonder.
supposed to scare you in some way, get your heart racing. Yeah, it's hard now because now that I'm adult, I don't really get scared watching movies anymore. But I think that's the
Yeah.
idea, is it's supposed to instill fear in some way. Yeah.
What about what's the difference between that and suspense, for instance?
Mhm.
Mm. Well, horror will usually have like often a paranormal aspect or a murdery aspect or, something like that, some kind of gore. To where suspense doesn't necessarily need that. A suspense is like, ooh, what's going to happen?
Mm.
That's what I think. I don't know. How would you
Yeah.
define it?
Me, I wouldn't. I'm asking the question.
No, yeah.
Uh, I mean, I know when I was growing up, like it was a genre, like it was a main genre. So okay, like I grew up a long time ago, so we didn't have sort of streaming TV and all that kind of stuff. So you sort of watch whatever was on the telly, and if it was a horror, you'd watch a horror. So it was like uh, you, you you saw it as something that you should watch to appreciate it. And as I grew older, I realized actually I don't really like horrors, and I discovered that I didn't actually have to watch them unless I'm forced to. Um, but I mean, I suppose even within horror, that there are different sort of types of horror. You can have really kind of schlock horror, your Halloweens, your Nightmare on Elm Streets, but then there are ones that are, and I can't give you an example, but a bit clever and yeah, a bit more of a story.
X-Files. That's kind of a horror. I used to love
There's-
the X-Files, and then yeah, something there's always someone out there at the end. That's what freaked me out so much. Do you know? But I think I used to hate horror. I used to hate it. And I just, for some reason, I just started loving horror. Do you know, I saw Evil Dead Rise. It's actually directed by an Irish guy.
Yeah, it's
I
good.
just thought it was amazing. Do you know? And it's the suspenseful horrors. Like there's one with Hugh Grant in it, Heretic. That is just phenomenal. Do you know? And also horror can be used kind of like comedy to highlight something. Like in Heretic, it's about a debate about religion, religious horror. Do you know? It's fascinating. But no, I really enjoy horrors now, funny enough. I used to never like them.
Well, I've
and you
always
like
liked
being
horrors.
scared. You've
Hmm?
always liked them.
Always, yeah.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Do you like
Interesting.
do you like being scared?
I think so. Well, not like again, I don't really get scared now. Maybe I've watched too many horrors now as to where it doesn't impact me. But certainly as a kid, like when you watch a horror and you get scared and you're like, oh my God. Or you go to bed and you're like scared to go to bed.
Yeah.
Or you have nightmares because of the horror film. Like, yeah, it's
Mhm.
it's an adrenaline in a way, right? That fear
Okay.
gives you
Definitely, especially in
it's
the cinema. It's kind of like a
yeah.
comedy. Seeing a horror with an audience is so
Yeah.
good. Do you
Hmm.
know? Like I suppose body horror would have been the substance. Do you know? If you went to see that in the cinema, that would be interesting. But there's a film coming up soon called Nosferatu,
Oh, I'm
with
looking forward to that. Yeah, the
yeah, it's supposed
remake.
to be really scary. Lily Rose Depp is in it, and she's actually a terrific actress, I must say. But like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to Nosferatu.
Me too.
You know, I don't know if it's going to be like the silent film, or is it completely different? But apparently, the reviews have come out really good reviews, saying it's one of the scariest films you'll have seen. So
Yeah.
it's come out soon enough.
Um,
Yeah.
Eggers.
It's
What's
basically
his first
Dracula.
name? Dave Eggers? Robert Eggers? Jim
Okay.
Eggers? Like, yeah, the guy that's made it. But apparently he's a huge fan of Nosferatu, the original
Okay.
silent film. And so he apparently, or not apparently, he did when he was in school, he put on a play version of Nosferatu.
Oh,
So the perfect person to do that film. Yeah.
God.
I actually watched it Nosferatu, say a couple of years ago. I watched the whole thing, and it was kind of boring. Like, I mean, the guy who was the Dracula character, that he was made up very well, and there was that whole shadow thing, and that was on. But for the most part, it was yeah, bit dull.
Well, it was a silent film, put it in a context
Oh,
of
yeah. I
19,
don't know. I mean, for the
whatever
time
it
it was
was that it
made
was
and everything,
made.
yeah, I mean, it was great. Like, but
Yeah.
uh,
Do you know, I actually saw it in the cinema. because they had a screen, maybe 3 years ago in the IFI or Lighthouse Cinema in Dublin. They actually had a screening of it on the big screen. It was a special screening, and it was just you see it in a big screen and in the dark with an audience, and your full attention is on it. It's just terrific.
Yeah. The
Um,
film people need to see is Nosferatu TWO,
oh yeah.
available on YouTube.
Oh,
Yeah, made by a young filmmaker when
so
he was living in
decent.
Ireland.
Oh yes. I remember I've seen it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll tell you a good film, a good horror. I presume it's a horror that I thought was a good film was The Others, which was a few years ago.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I
very
remember that
good.
was a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that was clever, and there was a bit of uh, there was suspense and a bit of mystery there and everything. So I'm not going to say every single horror is a bad film, but I think if it's done well, it passes my test.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly the different subgenres and stuff as well. Like, because I'm not a huge fan of like the body horror, the just blood and gore horror. You know,
Oh, I
horror.
don't like Saw or anything like that. I wouldn't
Yeah,
like
like
them. It's Hostel.
no,
Oh, I wouldn't be into that at all. Not
yeah,
at all.
yeah. I
Yeah.
liked the first Saw movie, but then it just got ridiculous. And yeah, so that kind of stuff I'm not a huge fan of. I do like more suspenseful type horror or
Okay, I actually,
comedy horror.
yeah, I never heard of body horror until today, so
This looks ins-
you learn something every day.
There you go. Well,
Mm.
since we've had a nice long discussion about horror films, I guess that means we're done with this one. Let's do our ratings. Who wants to go first?
Go.
Okay. Um, yeah, like it was really good. 13 years ago, good claymation, um, good humor in it, nicely rounded off. I'll give it 4 stars.
Yeah, for me, really enjoyed it. It's a simple story, but very effective. Brilliant stop motion animation, especially the animated gore. So I'm going to give it 4.5 stars.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. It was a really fun film to watch and really well done. Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys again on the ratings. Like, I really want to give it 5 stars, but it's just for some reason not quite there. So I'm going to go 4.5 along with Claire. There you have it. No Budget Audience. It's called T is for Toilet. Check it out. It's made by Lee Hardcastle. And you can let us know what you think. You can leave a comment in the show notes below, or you can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at No Budget Show. And with that, we'll say see you next time and goodbye.
But